It's time for a quick update on the dollar. Um, just as I predicted, we've got a catastrophic break below the 200-day moving average. I knew this was going to happen. The ECB has been using the 200 for months now to try and keep the dollar propped up, keep the euro suppressed against the dollar. Um, these artificial moves like this are prone to um, a very sharp, sudden, catastrophic break when they do unravel, and that's exactly what's happening today. And all of these interventions that kept the dollar propped up much longer than it should have naturally, all it's going to accomplish in the long run is we're going to have a much sharper, um, much more severe fall down into the next intermediate cycle low. Um, Normally, a right translated cycle like this one would hold above the previous intermediate cycle low right here, but the odds are very slim that is going to happen this time. They've set in motion the events to um, trigger a massive collapse in the dollar. So I don't expect this support zone is going to hold, and I would even question as to whether or not this one down here will hold. Um, Still very early in this daily cycle. They did manage to shorten this daily cycle much shorter than would have occurred normally, again, with using the 200-day moving average to try and keep the dollar up and force the euro down. But the, uh, the forces trying to push the dollar down just overwhelmed that intervention before it had any chance of making a higher high. And now we're clearly um, starting to accelerate into the next intermediate cycle low, and there's not really much that is going to slow this down at this point. So um, we could be 20 to 30 trading days still before this bottoms. I'll just have to keep uh, tabs on where sentiment is, but right now sentiment is just neutral. So there's a long way to go before we get to sentiment too lopsided, and then we would look for some kind of a counter trend move. But no doubt in my mind, let me widen this chart a bit. All right, so no doubt in my mind that um, this bounce out of the 3-year cycle low has topped. Probably next week, the dollar is going to collapse back below the 200-week moving average. So this megaphone pattern that I've been watching for 4 years now is coming to an end. This is the truncated move that does not reach the upper part of the pattern. And then once this support here breaks, typically you get a very violent move down. I wouldn't think that's going to happen during this intermediate cycle, but um, maybe later in the year or next year, um, I think we're going to have a very sharp collapse in the dollar. So if you've been listening to the Dollar Bulls, Martin Armstrong, Rocky Horner, most of the people over at KE Report, there's just a lot of people bought into that nonsense that the dollar was still in a bull market. Apparently, none of them bothered to look at a long-term chart of the dollar. But if you've listened to those people, they've kept you on the wrong side of the market since the top in 2017. And I think things are now about to get serious to the downside for the dollar.